The CIA is just one covert organization that finds itself tasked with doing the nearly impossible right now, sifting through billions of pieces of data almost every second to try and uncover that one sliver of information that could lead to the interception of a terrorist before they strike. The Paris attacks in broad daylight, seemingly with no warning, may need to be a true game changer in making the civilized world begin to understand where they need to go next in fighting these murderers. Let's welcome to MidPoint former CIA Covert Operations Officer and the president of Diligence LLC, Mike Baker, joins us. Mike, thanks so much for being here today.
Sure, thank you.
Mike, when we come down to actually trying to uncover these terrorists before things happen, apathy, ignorance, political correctness, blind luck, what is it that allowed something like this, such a well-planned attack, to sneak through French intelligence?
Well, in part, you're not going to stop everything. So part of it is not it's not apathy. It's not anything other than just statistics. You know, the reality is when you're talking about counterterrorism, you're not going to prevent every attack. It's impossible. Now, you know, in this case, frankly, given the scenario, given how it played out, and what we know so far about the way the attack was conducted, you know, the best opportunity that the French service would have had and law enforcement would have had. And they were aware of the threats to this building, to this organization, would have been at the point where they were still conducting surveillance. I mean, it's clear that the attack was well coordinated. The surveillance had to be carried out, and typically in an operation like that, that's when they're most vulnerable. So, you know, proper counter surveillance is at that point where you're getting close to the actual operation kicking off. You know, good, solid counter surveillance to pick up that last effort by the hostiles in their surveillance, in their planning. That's your best opportunity for preventing it. That obviously didn't happen, and you know, it's again, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. These attacks are only going to increase. But
well, I think that's a difference, though, Mike. I hear you.
Every one of them.
I hear your voice, though. It sounds almost as if you're shaking your head when you're saying that, as somebody who's been involved in counterterrorism so often, to understand that there were signs there. This is a very heavily policed country to begin with, and just wondering how something like this could happen. There are a lot of people out there who say that signs like these are missed because a lot of intelligence agencies and governments simply are too politically correct. When they hear the word Muslim or Islam, they back off immediately because they don't want to be seen as being insensitive. Isn't that part of it as well?
Well, I'd argue with a lot of people that say that have never been involved in at the pointy edge of the spear. So, you know, part of it is you know, they don't really know. You know, it's like all the experts that we're talking about, the Stony-Act. They don't have any insight into what's going on. So, you know, you have to discredit some of that. The reality is, yes, of course, you know, there's the political correctness doesn't help anything, but the French services are, if anything, you know, more aggressive than a lot of services out there in trying to stop. They understand the problem, the depth of the problem that they've got. Something like this, if you've got well-trained, well-motivated terrorists, then you know, you've got limited opportunities to pick this up. If they're smart about the communications, they're smart about how they bring the team together, they're smart about how they handle the weapons that are going to be handed out to the team, if they're smart about, you know, the money that's moving back and forth, if they're good with the surveillance, and they appeared to be, then it is an extremely difficult process. It's not like the movies, and unfortunately a lot of public, you know, is kind of conditioned by feature films and feature books to think that, you know, this is easier than it is.
Mike, how many times does not only America, but the world need to be slapped in the face by the fact that terrorists are smarter, they're better equipped, they're better prepared, and they're going to slip through the nets more often than not anymore simply because they are that motivated? Is this just a turning point, or does this need to be a turning point? 60 seconds.
Well, it'd be nice if it was a turning point. I think you know, we're all like raccoons. We get focused on the next shiny object. So I'm concerned that yes, there's, you know, we got the hashtag "You're sweet," you know, Charlie, and you know, there'll be some outrage. But just as soon as it was the outrage and the hashtag, also came the chorus, sort of from the traditional progressive, you know, liberal orchestra, saying, well, but it's not all Muslims. You know, we can't paint this. And I've actually seen quotes from some members on the left saying, you know, look, you know, it's not difficult. You can support free speech, and you can also support the idea that you shouldn't slander someone else's religion. And you're thinking, you know, as long as we have sort of this apologetic point of view, and feel like every time there's an attack, we have to, get on the Muslim side and say, well, we're sorry about this, and then we're not trying to paint you all with the same brush. You know what? How about the Muslim community that considers themselves moderate? How about them getting out there and actually taking part and condemning this in a very, very public and visual way and consistent way? Just keep hammering at it. You've got to drive the extremist mindset within the Muslim community into a box, and then you've got to shut the lid on that thing and bury it.
I don't think it's been put better on this air, certainly not recently. Mike Baker, a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Sure. Take care.
All right, take care. One man who has spent time on the international streets and understands what it's like to be threatened, not just by terrorists, but by governments themselves. That's next, here on the show that questions everything on MidPoint.